10 tips for a better work-life balance. So work-life balance is the third rail for most entrepreneurs. We know that we need better balance in our lives. We know that we have to be able to be smart about the way that we use our time and that we really need to make time for ourselves, our personal lives, and everything else. But the reality of it is, for most people, we're just really not that great at actually making that happen. And I mean, it's understandable, right? We don't mean to be working all the time or focused on work or feeling totally absorbed by it all the time, but there is just so much to do and it just ends up happening that way. So it's not, we don't set out to make that deliberate, but at the same time, somehow it ends up happening that way anyway. The problem is that long term, this can be a real issue because it can affect our personal lives, it can affect our health, and of course, also our happiness. And so it is important that if we have times where we need to cram or times where we need to really work hard and focus and put our nose down and just keep going, that's fine, but it needs to be in fits and spurts. We need to have time where we have breaks, we need to have time where we have an opportunity to rejuvenate, and we need to have time where we can shift our focus away from what we're doing professionally onto our personal lives to make sure that we have balance there too, and that we ultimately are living a life that can be sustainable and healthy enough for us to feel good about it. So let's talk about some practical ways to really create a better work-life balance, even if we're time-strapped, because I think it's really that important. And the irony, of course, is that the more time-strapped we feel and the less time that we actually feel like we have, the more important it is to make time to do other things. Because the fact of the matter is, it's going to be really difficult to ever feel as though we're consciously going to have enough time. We play this little game sometimes where we trick ourselves and we say, well, when we get to X milestone, or when we complete Y project, or when this happens, then that'll be the time where I'm going to be able to break away and I'm going to be able to do whatever I want, and it won't be like this anymore. And the fact of the matter is, usually what ends up happening is it just gets replaced with something else. So unless we have a deliberate plan, not a moment in time that we think will come where magically it will change, but rather a deliberate plan in place that will gradually scale things back for us and force us to work in a different schedule, then it's unlikely that it's ever going to happen. And the problem with that, again, is over too much time, that just leads to burnout, frustration, and it becomes very difficult to sustain that long term. So here's some effective tips for entrepreneurs to really achieve a better work-life balance. Now, they're not all going to be easy. They're not all going to be things that we can just jump in and start doing tomorrow. We might have to train ourselves to be able to do this and feel like it's okay, give ourselves permission to be able to step back and do the things that we need to do. But the first of those is to set clear priorities. If we start off by identifying what matters most in our lives, both professionally and personally, then we can make sure that we align our daily actions with those priorities. And so we certainly can carve out the time that we need for work, no doubt, and we can prioritize the things that are most important that have to be done today. But anything that doesn't need to be done today or can be done tomorrow can be pushed off, and things that in our personal lives that we don't want to sacrifice either, exercise, time with family, eating well, whatever, those are also things that we should prioritize, because when we have that balance and we have that ability to recharge and be able to focus on our personal lives as well, it actually gives us the fuel we need, the energy, the enthusiasm, the motivation, and also the perseverance, because sometimes, things in business are tough. And if we have no reserves left, if we have no fuel left in the tank because we've spent it all running all the time, then the problem is there's nowhere to go when we need that extra. So if we're able to recharge our batteries here and there and do these other things, what happens is we've got those extra reserves when we need them. So when we need to grind, we can do it. So we need to align our daily actions with those priorities. And the smartest way to do that is to carve it up in a time-based situation. So instead of saying we're going to do, this many things for work and then this many things, and what ends up happening is those overlap, they run over into the time that we were supposed to do personal things. that doesn't get done either. So what's most important is to be able to segregate that time so that way we know I'm going to get as much done as I can within this time frame. And then I'm going to shift to my other priorities and I'm going to get as much of that done in this time frame. And that's the right way to structure it. Then we have boundaries on what it is that we're doing, and it makes it a lot more effective and easy to be more balanced in terms of what we're doing. It also helps us avoid unnecessary stress, and it also makes sure that we're aligned and dedicated to the stuff that really matters to us. The second thing is to establish boundaries. So this is similar, but different, because we want to create distinct lines between work and personal time. The challenge nowadays, particularly for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that so many people work out of their houses and work from home. And when you're in your home environment, all of your home issues and responsibilities and all those other things are also there with you. So you never get that separation. When you go into an office somewhere, you have that separation where you couldn't think about answering the phone or the door or washing the dishes because they aren't there. But that stuff is all there when you're in that environment. And so when possible, it's great to have a physical space that's actually different. So that way we have an opportunity to just unplug by leaving that space. But even if we can't do that, it's super important that we carve out that time. So again, we get back to the idea of if we're going to work for this amount of time, and it can be broken up. We may not be able to work one consistent day, start to finish. Maybe we have responsibilities that are personal in the middle. That's fine. We can do hours in the morning, hours at night. The key is by putting boundaries around that. So we know when we're starting, when we're stopping, we know when we're shifting gears and moving into our other things. That is really the key, because that's how we avoid overrunning all of our personal stuff with business stuff and making it so we have no life at all. And so that can involve, setting specific working hours or, making sure that whatever that personal time is free from work interruptions as well. So if we have, work cell phone or, work accounts or whatever, we want to shut those off the same way we would shut off our personal stuff while we're working. So those clearly defined boundaries help us maintain our focus and our energy levels. And then when we get to shift gears, we get rejuvenated because we get an opportunity to now focus on the other stuff that we wanted to do as well. And it's completely different. So it works a different part of our brain. It works a different part of our emotional state and everything else. And so it gives us that opportunity to unplug from one thing, plug into the other, and stay focused on that. The third thing is to manage our time wisely. One of the other challenges that entrepreneurs have is we don't have a boss. We don't have anybody clocking us in, clocking us out. We don't have anybody watching over us to make sure we're getting our work done. So it becomes very easy to let time just slip away. Being busy is not hard. Being productive is hard. It's very easy to spend an entire day, and we've all had these days, where we work a full day, and then we look back across the day and we say, geez, I felt like I was really busy, but what did I actually get done? Because the key is not staying busy, because that's going to be very easy. The key is staying productive, focused on high leverage activities that are going to get us closer to where we want to be and get us closer to a place where maybe we can step back a little bit from what we're doing professionally and have somebody else do it for us because we can afford to pay them to do it. And so if we use tools like calendars where we schedule our tasks effectively, we use time blocks so we can block out those work times, those break times, the personal activities and all of that, then that's really going to help us in terms of ensuring that we have a balanced approach to our day and that we don't let one element or one aspect overrun everything else. Now, again, it's important to note at this point that we're not saying that that can never be the case. There may be days where we have a project due or a product launch or something like that where for that 3 or 4 days or that week, we just need to really cram and work, right? And that's fine. Same way we would take a vacation. But the key is if we do that, then we need to balance that out by doing things more on a personal side after. And the flip side of that is when we're on vacation, we shouldn't have all of our work stuff then open all the time. So if we need to check daily to make sure everything's not, on fire or whatever, that's totally fine. But we don't want to have our laptop with us constantly and all of our gear. So we're really at work, even though we're technically on vacation. We need to be able to unplug and recharge. The fourth thing is to take regular breaks. It's easy to want to just grind and grind and grind because taking breaks almost feels like, weakness, or it feels like we're just not productive enough and we need to be more productive. But the reality is actually the opposite. Study after study shows that when we take breaks throughout our workday to recharge, what ends up happening is productivity goes up, because we aren't machines. We aren't meant to work nonstop. We aren't meant to just go, go, go and never slow down. I mean, if you think about it, even machines aren't. If you drive your car day after day, week after week, month after month, and you never fill it up with gas or change the oil, the car's going to break down. It needs maintenance. It needs downtime, right? Just the same way that we do. So it's really important that we incorporate those breaks into our day. We can do, time blocks where we work for 55 minutes and then take 5 minutes. We can work for 2 hours and then take 15 minutes, whatever it is. But we need to schedule those things in. And in general, it's good to have a couple of longer ones as well, where maybe we go out, walk around the block, or, do something that just gets us out of that workspace, gets us out of that mentality, and lets us have a clean break so we can keep going. And that's really vitally important. So we definitely want to incorporate those short breaks throughout the workday so we can recharge. Things like walking, even stretching or meditating, listening to a couple of songs, all of those things can help clear our mind and really improve productivity, because what they do is they let us completely separate from what we're doing. And when we do that mentally as well as physically, it has a profound effect on our ability to be productive after the fact. The fifth thing is to prioritize physical and mental health. These are the things that often go first when we're an entrepreneur. We completely neglect ourselves. We think, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I don't need to worry about this. I don't have time to eat healthy. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to worry about, meditating or worrying about my mental health or psychological state. I've got to just keep going, going, going. And someday when I reach this imaginary finish line, then I'll be able to do all of this stuff. The problem is it's flawed thinking, because that finish line just keeps getting moved and we never quite reach it. And so what we end up doing is we constantly are reaching for something we can't quite grab. So we never get to the point where we allow ourselves to prioritize physical and mental health. And that's vitally important, because we are the engine that drives our business. If we break down, so does the business. We've got to be able to keep going. We've got to be able to operate at our best. And we've got to be in a situation where we have the capacity to do the things that we need to do. We also have the fortitude to be able to work through challenges and problems, because when we're in a depleted state, it's incredibly difficult to be able to work through challenges and issues, because we just don't have the reserves to be able to do it. So by prioritizing those, by investing time in exercise, and again, we don't need to be, Hulkamania, like bodybuilder types if we don't want to do that. It can just be a walk around the block. It can be a jog. It can be, take your dog out for a walk, whatever. But at least get out, get some exercise, get our bodies moving, especially if we have a job or a business that keeps us stationary. Healthy eating is really important and not as difficult as it might seem. There are lots of recipes that you can make that are, basically chicken and a few ingredients. You throw them on the grill, it's done in 15 minutes. So we don't need to have this big, extensive, repertoire of recipes or places where we can get healthy food to be able to eat healthy. But it's super important that while we might have that cheeseburger or that fast food or whatever, we want to balance that out by making sure that we're eating fruits and vegetables, that we're, drinking enough water, and that we're having healthy meals as well, because it makes us feel better. We all know that feeling when you eat something that you really shouldn't. It tastes good, and then you just sort of feel like your energy's all drained out of you. All you want to do is take a nap. And we also know that feeling when, you have that fruit smoothie, you have the banana for breakfast and the yogurt, and then you feel great. And it makes it a lot easier to eat healthy for lunch too, because we're already on a roll. The minute we have the donut for breakfast, the rest of the day is shot. So it's super important to be able to invest time in that, and at least occasionally make sure that we're working in healthy eating as much as possible, and actually sleep. Sleep is a really big one. I can share with you that when I was really trying to build my business from its infancy, I was at a point where I was working 16 hours a day, sometimes 18 hours. And I got to a point where I didn't even recognize what good sleep was. And I got to a point where I didn't even realize I was deprived of sleep. I just realized I would wake up and be really tired and need to power through every day. And once I realized this was unhealthy and I decided to change that, and I committed to, angling, and my goal was 7 hours a night. Couldn't always get it, but tried for 7, 6 at a minimum, 8 I didn't even really need. So 7 was pretty much what I was focused on. And I have to say that once I was able to actually do that and commit to getting that, it was transformative. I felt so much better. I didn't have to, force myself out of bed every morning. I could get up, have enough energy to get going, have enough energy to feel okay, to power through issues and problems that naturally creep up during the day, and all of that other stuff. So maintaining our physical and mental well-being is crucial for sustaining energy and focus, both at work and in our personal lives. And so healthy eating is part of it, but so is sleep and exercise, of course. The sixth thing is learn to say no, right? It's something that as entrepreneurs, we're yes people. We want to believe we can do everything. There's, we don't want to say no to anything. If there's opportunities, if there's things that we want to do, we always want to be able to do that. But what happens is we get overcommitted. So it's really important to recognize our limits and avoid overcommitting by recognizing that. Saying no to additional responsibilities, saying no to things that don't align with our priorities, saying no to anything that we think might be a nice to do, but isn't required for what we're trying to do for business, or isn't required for what we need to do to feel good about our personal lives. Those things can really help prevent burnout and maintain balance in a way that's really important and vital to our long-term health, which ultimately, that is the most important thing, because we won't recognize it until it's gone, and then it's too late, right? So we don't want to wait till there's a problem and then try to fix it. Let's prevent it in the first place. The seventh thing is to unplug every single day. Do it daily. So make it a habit to disconnect from work-related devices at a certain time or for a certain time each and every single day. Because what this does is it creates a mental separation. It's actually, it feels almost freeing in a way, because when we don't have that constantly something that we need to check, or constantly something that's buzzing or nagging us to remind us that something else needs to be done, and we're able to completely disconnect from it. Think about it when the last time you were in a network-free zone where you couldn't get a cell signal and your laptop didn't work. There's something about that that's liberating. There's something about that that's freeing, because we don't have an option. We couldn't work even if we wanted to. So by making a conscious decision to do that, even if it's for a short period of time, that helps create a mental separation between work and personal life. And that allows us to relax and enjoy all of our personal activities that much more. If we're constantly looking down at what else we got going, we're not really in the moment. So we're sort of cheating it, and we're not really getting the full benefit or the full recharge from that. The eighth thing we want to do is pursue hobbies and interests. This can be really difficult, especially if it's something new, because there's always a learning curve, right? So it takes time and energy to invest in a new hobby. But the fact is, when we pursue hobbies and interests, all of those things stimulate our creativity, and they awaken us. They make us feel better about who we are and balance us emotionally. So if we engage in activities outside of work that we really like, those hobbies can provide a necessary outlet for that stress and can really help enhance our overall happiness, so it contributes to a more balanced life. It's a really, really important point. The ninth thing that we can do is to practice mindfulness, right? Just being in the moment. We don't need to do, super serious meditation or anything like that, but just be aware of our surroundings. Take a few minutes and recognize what's going on. Just feel and be. And without any judgment, without any thought, without any angle for what needs to be done next, or tasks or priorities. Incorporate that like some sort of meditation, or even deep breathing exercises. It's amazing what that will do for your overall well-being. Even breathing deep gives you this really good sense of balance and centeredness, which is really powerful. So we can incorporate that into our routine. And again, those are really fast and easy things to do. They don't require a lot of time, energy, or effort. and yet they can make a massive difference in the quality of our lives. So these practices can reduce stress and improve our overall well-being. And the 10th thing is to delegate responsibilities. If we've got other people around us, absolutely make sure that they're pulling their share of the load and that we're delegating anything and everything that we can. If we don't have people around us, we need to start asking the question, should we get an outsourcer? Should we get somebody to help with this? Should we hire somebody? So that way we can give them all of these other things, take those off my plate and get me down to a normal amount. So I can work really hard, but I can work really smart because I can do it within the framework of something that still works for my life. I don't have to sacrifice my life in order to be able to work this. And so that's a really important distinction, and it's something that we need to figure out whether or not it makes sense to be able to do that. We have to recognize all the tasks that can be delegated to other people, and we can do that by charting what we do on a daily basis. When we delegate, it not only frees up our time for more critical tasks, but it also allows us to focus on areas where we can add the most value and have the most impact in our business. So by implementing these strategies, entrepreneurs can work toward a healthier work-life balance. And ultimately, that enhances both our personal lives, our personal well-being, and our business success. So the takeaway here is, look, there's no silver bullet for work-life balance, and it may always be a struggle or effort for us. But it's important that we take steps and that we try, because we need it for our own health and for our own sanity, if nothing else. By being conscious of it, that in and of itself, and then deliberately working in these hacks, we can achieve better balance and hopefully get to a place where we can really have both our dream business and our dream life.